One major obstacle to the individuation of NI dominance, the spiritualization of INFJs, of INTJs, is important to highlight, even though it may be difficult to accept as such or to reckon with at first sight. This obstacle is envy in oneself, but also envy in others. Okay, so if we speak of NI dominance as a group, perhaps you're part of a group, where there are different NI dominants. Envy is something that I've already emphasized is, I believe, an important part of the emotional landscape of anyone, in fact, but it's quite pronounced in NI dominance. It can be very muffled, it can be very muted, it can be very repressed. Why would it be so repressed? For a very simple reason, which is that envy is, socially speaking, envy is considered a very ugly trait, a very nasty feeling, petty, cruel, small. There's not a lot of good things about envy. So even though envy is present in every single one of us to some degree, none of us is immune from envy. To find people who are actually willing to come forward and say, sometimes I am an envious person, is rare. It's rare because it requires a kind of emotional honesty and transparency, and also self-knowledge that is higher than average. And in fact, when you're aiming for spiritualization, one of the stages is most certainly to face your own envy. Envy is very closely connected to repair. This is something that I've mentioned before. Without the fantasy of damaging, spoiling someone through envy, with its blueprints in very early childhood, the envy of the love object, the beautiful, perfect object, the mother. Without this spoiling, this fantasy of spoiling, there's no guilt, there's no drive to reparation, there's no drive to divination of future circumstances where envy may arise again. So envy is very crucial. It plays a special role in the emotional life, unconscious mostly, of NI dominance. So to spiritualize, to integrate yourself, it means, of course, integrating your shadow in Jungian terms. Well, if you're going to have to integrate your shadow, you're certainly going to have to reckon with that part of your shadow that is an envious shadow. It's inevitable, and it's, trust me, it is much more useful to think of the integration of your shadow as the integration of envy, among other things, of course, also of hatred, of destructiveness, and so on, than to think of how you're going to integrate, say, if you're an INFJ, your ENFP functions. Because that's just, how are you going to work on that? To start working on your envy is a bit more practical. It means training to sort of make yourself more aware of when you are envious and trying to understand why. Often we become aware, we have the choice of becoming fully aware of our envy when we experience what's called Schadenfreude, of course. When a person experiences misfortune and we realize that we are kind of gleeful about it, or at least we experience a certain amount of pleasure, it's easier to sort of cast it aside or file it away than to confront it and the envy that is always underneath. Now, so coming to terms with your envy, not necessarily trying to smash it. You see, the thing about individuation is that it's like a process of integration of the self. It's essentially a process of self-embrace, of self-acceptance, not fixation on the ego, but embrace of the whole self. Because a fixation on the ego, on sort of on your narcissism in a way, tends to always come with a repression what you think is bad about yourself. That's the opposite of self-acceptance, right? Of a self-encompassing that is integral. And that means not trying to delete all forms of envy in yourself, because that would systematically amount to just repressing it, right? Accepting that sometimes you are envious, sometimes you have envious fantasies, and that's okay. That's individuation. It's not getting rid of your envy. It's accepting that sometimes it happens and it's okay. It usually comes with higher awareness and, in fact, with a lowering of the intensity of envy, because the more sort of you make room for it in your life as something that happens, so the more you bring it to consciousness, well, the less room it occupies in the unconscious, where it becomes kind of highly charged and thus susceptible to invade much more areas of your life than if it becomes something more conscious. That's an important aspect of individuation, and I would say an important aspect of spiritualization, if we understand spiritualization as the INFJ and INTJ way of individuating. Okay, so confronting your own envy is crucial, because envy is part of your narrative. Envy is part of your narrative of repair. It's part of your narrative of reading the signs, of divination. We have to come to terms with the fact that qualities that we may like in ourselves, in a conscious day-to-day sort of way, like repair, can be seen as very socially valuable if it's manifested as altruism, if it's manifested as wanting to help people, wanting to cure people, you know, a doctor or psychoanalyst. Like psychoanalysis is like a very good example of an arena where the fantasy of repair can express itself, repairing, you know, psyches, repairing minds. I'm fully aware of the fact that by pursuing this course in psychoanalysis, I am staging, in some sense, expressing my fantasy of repair, and that's fine. But there's a close connection between envy, repair, reparation, guilt, anticipation, divination, you know? So an honest and humble confrontation with this feeling is crucial. But another very important aspect is how this plays out in others, and how that can actually obfuscate and obstruct your own path of spiritualization. But this will keep to a separate video. Okay, guys? Give me a like if you enjoyed this video. Always keep in mind that this costs you nothing and it really helps with the referencing of the video. Also keep in mind that you can join me on Patreon. I need your support more than ever. Cannot do this without you. The link to my Patreon is down below. You know that for a small amount every month or every year, quite a small amount, you make a big difference, and you get cool perks like access to our Discord server, interact with me and the others on a daily basis, as well as access to my exclusive big library of deep dive videos. It's growing, you know, every 2-3 weeks, new content. What would an NI dystopia be like? NI and mysticism, NI and madness, and NI and magic. There's lots of stuff that's discussed there, and usually the topic is chosen by the community. So join us there. Don't forget about my 2 books as well about the INFJ if you want to deepen your understanding of this type. The Infinite Soul is my latest one on INFJ life in the modern world, how to find meaning, purpose, and value as an INFJ in the world, and the Ecstatic Soul, which is all about the INFJ mind and INFJ consciousness, the inner world of the INFJ. If you want a deep understanding of INFJs, you should get these books. The links are below, and I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Bye-bye.